We're going to check out some free agent targets for the Browns now that they have their offensive coordinator, but it is the last day in January, and we are so close to passing Steelers Talk in subscribers. So if you hate the Pittsburgh Steelers, hit that sub button down below. What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson here, talking about some free agent targets for the Browns. Now that they have their offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey, we can have a little bit more of a focused search at some of the free agent players out there on the market in March that with Ken Dorsey at OC, the Browns might have some extra interest in. But I think it's an important talking point to bring up, which is, what does Ken Dorsey do well as a QB coach, as an offensive coordinator? Because he's had two claim to fames. Under Ken Dorsey, Cam Newton won an MVP award. And Cam Newton has been very vocal about how instrumental and helpful Ken Dorsey was in his development. And then fast forward a couple of years, he becomes the Bills QB coach and eventually becomes their offensive coordinator. And Josh Allen is, well, Josh Allen. So when we think about Cam Newton and Josh Allen, they have some similarities. They both have a tendency to run more than pass every so often, more so for Newton than Allen. And I don't think we're going to see necessarily Dorsey come over to Cleveland and start asking Deshaun Watson to run the football a lot more. But I do think under Cam Newton and Josh Allen's reign as quarterbacks, we saw a lot of RPO, right? We saw a lot of getting the running game involved and not so much pin and pull with Kevin Stefanski calling the shots. So with that being said, I do think we might see some free agents come across the Browns' radar that better fit what Ken Dorsey has done historically on offense. And so let's get started with one of his old wide receivers, Gabe Davis. After being a day 3 pick by the Bills in 2020, Gabe Davis is a free agent. I'm not sure if you guys saw his final message, we'll call it, to Bills fans as he was leaving the stadium following their loss to the Chiefs. He had some, choice words for Bills Mafia, and maybe that's a bit of a fracture in the relationship, and Gabe Davis could be looking to take his talents elsewhere. Now, he was a 4th-round pick out of UCF, and he has been the Bills' number 2 guy following Stephon Diggs from 2020 to 2023. In fact, I found this rather interesting. He has 27 career touchdowns since 2020, and that is the most by any wide receiver with less than 200 receptions. So if you want to talk about efficiency in scoring touchdowns, it's Gabe Davis. He scores a lot of TDs, and he doesn't get a lot of balls thrown his way. And so I think Ken Dorsey in Cleveland with Gabe Davis could find some comfort and some rhythm. And hey, I've got a superstar quarterback in Deshaun Watson. I want to air the football out. And if I'm looking for a guy to score touchdowns, Gabe Davis has done that at a great level. I mean, you can look at his career stats: 7 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. The yards might not be where people want it to be. Hasn't come really all that close to eclipsing 1,000 yards. But I'm not looking for Gabe Davis to come to Cleveland and become their number 1 wide receiver. I've got that in Amari Cooper. I'm looking for a complimentary wideout. And Gabe Davis would complement Amari Cooper's skill sets, right? Gabe Davis definitely has that vertical element to his game, which we don't really see from Cedric Tillman or David Bell yet. And Amari Cooper is just he's a wide receiver that can run any single route, and he's not a one-trick pony. He's a vertical threat. He's a sideline, back shoulder type of wide receiver. He's a slant guy. He can be whatever you need him to be. Now, what would it cost to get Gabe Davis? Spotrac comes out with contract projections for all the marquee free agents, and this is what they're projecting for Gabe Davis. 4 years, $54 million. That's an average of $13.6 million a season. That's a big number for the Browns to swing for a new wide receiver too. If his price drops, Andrew Berry should pick up the phone and see what it would take to get Gabe Davis to Cleveland. I've heard nothing but great things about how Gabe Davis was kind of not the most important, most valuable piece of the Bills offense, but one of those squeaky wheels that if it's not tightened, things just don't go all that smoothly, right? And I think Gabe Davis was sorely missed during the playoff game against the Chiefs, and I'm sure Ken Dorsey would love to have him join him in Cleveland. Now, let me know if you would be interested in signing Gabe Davis. scroll on down to the comments section. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Don't be afraid to give me your opinion. I feel like in this day and age, everyone is so afraid to give an opinion because if you're wrong, people are going to come back and clown on you. And while we do that as a society, that doesn't mean you should not shoot your shot. Now, switching gears here, let's talk about a running back that could fit what Ken Dorsey likes to do offensively. And this is Austin Ekeler, Chargers running back that is likely done in LA. Remember, he was looking for a contract extension last offseason. They didn't give it to him. Ultimately, Austin Ekeler had a down year in 2023, and I'm sure that's going to be a good enough reason for Jim Harbaugh to move on from Ekeler. But I do think it's worth sharing that from 2019 to 2023, when Austin Ekeler was the dominant back in that Chargers backfield, he led all running backs in receiving yards with 3,201. And that is more than the next highest leader in Christian McCaffrey by 399 yards. Now, he turns 29 in May, so he's getting very, very close to that dreadful age of 30 for running backs. But I think if you're looking for a running back that could complement Deshaun Watson in an RPO-style offense, which Josh Allen, Cam Newton, in some of their best seasons with Ken Dorsey calling the shots, there was a fair amount of RPO. And Austin Ekeler, I mean, he can run the ball well, but he can also be a lethal receiving threat for any quarterback. Over the last 4 years, 2023, down season, no doubt about it. Average 3.5 yards a pop. If we're looking to defend or excuse Eckler's play, the whole offense just completely fell apart in LA, especially when Justin Herbert went down and got injured towards the end of the year. Austin Ekeler missed some time as well early in the season. It was just a wash of a season in LA, which might benefit the Browns because that could dramatically reduce his price tag. And maybe in a rejuvenated system over in Cleveland, Ekeler can get back to who he was in 2022 and 2021 when he was averaging nearly 4.5 yards a carry and he was scoring 18 to 20 touchdowns. Now, we do have to talk about the running back room because why would you sign Austin Ekeler when you've got Nick Chubb, right? Well, this is unfortunately the difficult part of the show where we have to acknowledge I don't quite know when the Browns are going to get Nick Chubb back to full health. And so that could provide a wrinkle into if they are trying to, I wouldn't say hedge their bets, but if they're trying to make a good backup plan. I think we learned in 2023, turning things over to Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt as your leading ball carriers was just not a very good backup plan for the full season. And it's tough for teams to overcome losing a star player like Nick Chubb in week 2. But they should be Boy Scouts in 2024 and be prepared to not have Nick Chubb at his full health or complete availability for all 17 games by maybe adding a veteran back like Austin Ekeler. We're going to look at 3 more free agent targets in just a moment. But first, I do want to share with you guys an awesome sale going on at Fanatics. It's this Brownie the Elf t-shirt here. So if you're looking to up your Cleveland Browns wardrobe, go to chatsports.com/elf shirt. That link is in the comments and description of today's video. Whether it's this shirt here or another Browns piece of swag you're looking for, just make sure you use our link. That way you can get the best sale possible. Let's switch gears and get back to wide receiver now. Mike Evans. You knew it wouldn't take me too long to bring up Mr. Evans because he has been one of the hottest names on the streets of Cleveland when talking about Browns free agent targets. I don't care if Ken Dorsey is the offensive coordinator or anyone else is the offensive coordinator. Mike Evans fits the mold for pretty much every single offense. The guy is a jump ball receiver. He's a vertical threat. He can run any route. Mike Evans is a future Hall of Fame wide receiver in my eyes. So I don't really give a damn what Ken Dorsey wants to do offensively. Mike Evans can be plugged into any system and be effective. That's what having a superstar player does for you. But if we're looking at what Deshaun Watson likes in wide receivers, Mike Evans fits that mold. I think back to last offseason when Andrew Berry decided to pass on DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not quite sure how interested the Browns were in DeAndre Hopkins, but they decided to stick with their homegrown guys, right? Stick with Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Bell, and some of their smaller signings like Marquise Goodwin. And ultimately, I think Andrew Berry, who said he has a journal, a notebook, a diary of going back to previous decisions and whether or not that was a mistake, I think he's going to look at his diary or his journal from the offseason of 2023 when the Browns passed on DeAndre Hopkins, and they really could have used him in 2023. So now Andrew Berry has a chance to redeem himself by getting a very similar skill set receiver in Mike Evans. But here's the hiccup. Mike Evans is much more expensive than DeAndre Hopkins. Spotrac has a projection of him getting 4 years, $95 million. That's an average of $23.8 million a season. I'm not really confident. I am confident that he's not going to get that much money. And here's why. Because look at the last 2 off seasons. Here are the 4 highest paid total money receivers in 2023 and 2022 free agency. Christian Kirk is the only guy that got over $50 million. I mean, look around. From Pee Wee football all the way to the pros, everyone wants to play wide receiver. So what does that mean for the current wide receivers? It means that every single draft class, it's almost as if it's better than the last draft class of wide receivers. And teams know this. So why pay Christian Kirk $72 million, Mike Evans nearly $100 million, when you can turn to the draft and find a pretty near quality wide receiver for 1/10 of the price? And unfortunately for Evans and for other wide receivers that are going to be free agents this year, they are entering a market that is jam-packed with talent, right? This is not a good time to be a free agent wide receiver. So if Evans turns to the open market and is met with, we're not paying you $95 million because we can get Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors as not even the top first wide receiver taken in the draft, well, maybe the Browns give a call and they go, listen, Mike, I know you were looking for $95 million, but unfortunately, that's just not what the market is right now. So this is what we can offer you. And maybe that's something Evans would agree to come down to from his original asking price to try and go win a Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson and get 2 rings on his hand. So with that all being said, name a random Browns wide receiver. I love posing these kind of off-the-wall questions because it's very fun to see what responses we get. The more random, the better. You can't go OBJ. I don't want to see one Jarvis Landry. I don't even want to see a Josh Gordon down there. I want to see like a Miles Austin. That's how random I want to see these wide receivers get. Let's get back to our free agent targets, and we flip back to the running back page here as we seesaw between receivers and running backs, because DeAndre Swift had a great season with the Philadelphia Eagles. He rushed for over 1,000 yards, a career year for him, averaging 4.6 yards a pop, 6 touchdowns. And similar to Mike Evans, I think back to last year during the draft, when DeAndre Swift was made available by the Philadelphia Eagles, by the Detroit Lions. And the Browns didn't take him up on that opportunity. And I wonder, now that we are a full year removed from seeing what Jerome Ford can do as an RB2, Andrew Berry decides we're not going to half-ass going all in for 2024. Let's give Nick Chubb a true running mate. I also think if the Browns were to sign a DeAndre Swift or an Austin Ekeler or a Tony Pollard, that would likely be a very big indication into what they believe Nick Chubb's availability will be for 2024. Because as much as we are all rooting for Nick Chubb to return, even if you just remove the contract element from some of the obstacles for Chubb coming back in 2024, I'm not even sure what week he'll be available. I don't want to bet against Batman, but when you get an ACL injury in November, I remember when Odell Beckham Jr. got one in November and he was not ready for the start of the season, and that was his first ACL tear on that knee, right? Nick Chubb has gone through several knee injuries now in his career. So I wonder if the Browns, unfortunately, like fingers crossed this doesn't happen, but if March and April rolls around and the Browns get an update on Nick Chubb's rehab and the diagnosis is I wouldn't bank on him being available for the first couple of weeks of the season, maybe Cleveland decides we're not going to put our faith in Jerome Ford to be our leading running back for the first 6 weeks of the year. Let's go get an Austin Ekeler or DeAndre Swift. One final free agent target to look at, Curtis Samuel. So, similar to Gabe Davis, he's got a bit of a connection with Ken Dorsey, and I think Curtis Samuel could be Ken Dorsey's poor man's Gabe Davis. They're not the exact same type of wide receiver, I know that, but I think if we're looking at what Curtis Samuel could do well, I think he could be a vertical element in this offense, similar to what Gabe Davis was in Buffalo. Now, where is the connection? Well, Curtis Samuel overlapped with Ken Dorsey in Carolina with the Panthers for one season in 2017, and I think he would be an upgrade for Marquise Goodwin, who I checked because I thought I knew the number, and I was really embarrassed to say it out loud. Marquise Goodwin had all 4 receptions in 2023. So Curtis Samuel turns 28 years old in August, so he's much younger than Marquise Goodwin. And listen, I'm not trying to put all the blame on Goodwin. Unfortunately for him, he suffered blood clots in training camp, and then he suffered a pretty big concussion later on in the season. And those were just, the theme of 2023 for the Browns, unlucky injury blows. But Curtis Samuel, he's got a much more consistent level to his game. I mean, you look at what he's done the last couple of seasons, specifically in Washington, excluding 2021 when he only played 5 games, as the number 2/3 option for a dreadful Commanders air raid, 656 yards, 613 yards. Again, I'm not looking for guys to come into Cleveland and be surefire 1,000-yard, 8-touchdown receivers. I'm looking to add to the Browns' receiving arsenal. And Curtis Samuel could bring some speed. He had one of the fastest 40 times when he came out of college. And, of course, he knows a thing or two about playing great football in the Buckeye State. So who do you want the Browns to sign? Let me know down below in the comment section. We just ran through 5 players. Is it one of those 5 guys? Is it someone I left off? I want to know your opinion down below in the comment section. But let's wrap up today's video by picking a card. We've got producer Cullen Brown with us today. Cullen, what do you want to go with?
I think we talked about 5 wide receivers. I'm thinking 5.
Think 5.
And I'm going to go with spades.
5 of spades. I like it. I like it. I'm going to go with the 6 of diamonds. Nope. 10 of hearts. 10 of hearts. All right. That will do it for us on today's Cleveland Browns Report. I really appreciate all of you guys that stick around to the end of the video. You have no idea how much you mean to me. So we'll let you guys get on out of here, and we'll catch up later.